Ava Miller had learned much too young that adults could smile in public and still break your world in private. At 8 years old, she stood in the middle of the shimmering lobby of the Lakeshore Grand Hotel, where her father's company was holding its annual anniversary gala, feeling her small hands shake as she clutched the hem of her simple blue dress. All around her were people in suits, glittering gowns, the kind of place where soft jazz filled the air and you could see your reflection on the polished floors. But all Ava could hear were echoes of the night her parents' life fell apart. Her mother, Emma, had been pregnant, exhausted, overwhelmed, when Ava's father, Jason, announced the divorce. Ava remembered being confused, standing on the stairs, watching her parents argue in the living room before Jason walked out and slammed the door so hard it rattled the windows. She remembered her mother crying quietly in the kitchen afterward, one hand on her belly, trying to breathe. Then came the day Ava moved into her father's new house and met Brianna. Her father's new wife always wore a sweet smile in front of other people, but when the doors closed and no one else was around, her smile vanished. She picked at Ava's mistakes, controlled her routines, criticized her for missing her mother, and punished her for things Ava didn't understand. It wasn't loud, and it wasn't dramatic, but it hurt just the same. And now, tonight, Ava stood in a ballroom full of strangers, knowing something terrible was about to happen. She had overheard Brianna whispering earlier, talking about taking something from Ava's mother again, something big, something meant to humiliate her in front of everyone. Ava didn't know how, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She had to stop it before her mother was hurt again. Ava had always been the kind of girl who paid attention to the small things. How her mom's smile dimmed a little each week during the marriage, how her dad slowly drifted into another world, and how Brianna's eyes never matched the kindness in her voice. She learned early that danger didn't always arrive with shouting or broken plates. Sometimes it moved quietly, like a shadow sliding under a door. After the divorce, weekends with her mother became the only time Ava felt safe. Emma would cook simple meals, mac and cheese, chicken soup, and let Ava talk about school, drawings, or anything she wanted. Even pregnant and exhausted, Emma always made space for Ava. She would touch Ava's hair gently, the way Ava wished she could be touched every day. But the moment Ava returned to her father's house, everything shifted. Brianna watched her too closely, her voice clipped and sharp when Jason wasn't around. She didn't scream or hit, but she controlled every breath Ava took. Stand straighter. Don't make a mess. Don't bother your father. Stop asking about your mom. Ava learned to stay quiet, to shrink, to disappear. But the worst part wasn't Brianna's coldness. It was what Ava saw happening to her father. Jason transformed into someone she barely recognized. He believed everything Brianna said. Even when Ava tried to tell him she felt uncomfortable, he dismissed her softly at first, then impatiently. Eventually, he stopped listening altogether. Ava tried writing in her diary about it, but Brianna found it and threw it away. She tried calling her mom more, but Brianna limited her screen time. Ava even tried sleeping with the small stuffed rabbit Emma had given her, until Brianna accidentally donated it with old clothes. Each little loss added weight to Ava's chest. And then came the moment that changed everything. The evening Ava overheard Brianna talking on the phone, laughing quietly as she said, "She still thinks the project was hers. After tonight, everyone will know the truth. Our truth." Their truth? Ava froze behind the hallway wall. Something terrible was about to happen to her mother at the gala. Something unfair. Something planned. And Ava realized she might be the only one who could stop it. The Lakeshore Grand Hotel shimmered like a palace when Ava arrived with her father and Brianna. The valet line was full of sleek cars, bright dresses, and people who walked like they owned the world. Jason straightened his tie, trying to look confident, while Brianna held onto his arm with a smile so polished it didn't look real. Ava walked a few steps behind them, clutching her small purse, wishing she were anywhere else. Inside, the ballroom glowed with chandeliers and soft golden light. Tables were arranged with white roses, and servers moved around with trays of sparkling water and tiny appetizers. It was the kind of elegant room her father loved, full of people who praised him and pretended to be impressed. Ava scanned the crowd anxiously. She knew her mother wouldn't be here yet. Emma had told her she might come late because of the pregnancy, but Ava hoped, no, she needed, to see her mother before anything awful happened. Jason leaned down to her briefly. "Stay close, okay? Tonight's important." His tone was firm, almost rehearsed. Brianna bent toward Ava, her smile tightening. "And remember what we talked about. No unnecessary questions, no wandering. Understand?" Ava nodded, though her stomach twisted. She wished her mom were holding her hand instead. Across the ballroom, a large digital screen displayed highlights of the company's achievements over the past year. Ava's eyes lingered on a familiar graphic, one she had seen on her mother's laptop countless times. The color scheme, the design, even the headline. It was Emma's project. Her breath caught. Brianna and Jason had taken more than just ideas. They had taken everything Emma had worked for while she struggled through pregnancy and heartbreak. Ava's heartbeat thudded in her ears. She slipped away to a corner near the technical booth, staying small and unnoticed. From there, she overheard two employees whispering about the upcoming presentation, how Jason and Brianna were being honored for their groundbreaking strategy. Ava's chest tightened. This was it. This was what Brianna had bragged about. This was the moment they planned to humiliate her mother. Publicly, proudly, and without shame. Ava swallowed hard. If she didn't act tonight, her mother's name would be ruined, and she refused to let that happen. Ava stayed tucked behind the heavy curtain near the technical booth, her small fingers gripping the fabric as she listened. Every nerve in her body felt alert, like she was standing in the center of a storm only she could see. She didn't hear the music anymore, or the clinking glasses, or the murmured conversations around the ballroom. All she heard was Brianna's voice replaying in her mind. After tonight, no one will believe Emma again. Ava's chest tightened. Her mother had worked nights, early mornings, and weekends on that project, even while pregnant, even while trying to rebuild after losing everything. She did it for the company, but also for Ava, to prove she could still stand strong. And now her father and Brianna were going to take all the credit. As Ava leaned in closer, she overheard something new, something worse. Two staff members were reviewing the presentation files. One whispered, "There were older recordings attached to the project, but someone deleted them this morning. They looked like Emma's voice." Deleted recordings? Ava's eyebrows pulled together. Her mother had mentioned weeks ago that she recorded her brainstorming sessions automatically so she wouldn't forget details. If those files were erased, someone wanted Emma to have no proof. Ava's stomach dropped. Suddenly, she heard footsteps. She froze. Brianna appeared from around the corner, speaking softly into her phone. "Yes, everything's in place. The board thinks it was our work. By the time Emma arrives, it'll be too late." Ava ducked lower, heart pounding. Brianna continued, her tone cold and confident. "She's emotional, pregnant, stressed. If she tries to argue, she'll look unstable, just like we planned." A twist of fear shot through Ava. They didn't just want the credit. They wanted to make her mother look untrustworthy. They wanted to destroy her reputation completely. Ava felt something inside her shift, a bravery she didn't recognize, a determination she had never felt before. She stepped back quietly, her mind racing. She had to get to her mother. She had to warn her. She had to find proof. Anything. Because after tonight, the world might believe lies. Unless she, an 8-year-old no one noticed, became the one person who finally spoke the truth. Ava slipped out of the curtain's shadow like a quiet breeze, her small shoes barely making a sound on the ballroom carpet. She knew she had to reach her mother before Brianna and Jason's presentation began, but she also knew that if they saw her wandering alone, they'd drag her back and keep her silent. She moved through the crowd carefully, weaving between tall adults who didn't notice the determined little girl among them. Her eyes scanned the room, searching desperately for Emma's familiar face, the soft curls, the gentle eyes, the hands always reaching out for her, but Emma wasn't there yet. Panic fluttered in Ava's chest. She didn't have time. Across the room, Jason and Brianna were greeting executives, their fake smiles as smooth as marble. Jason looked proud, so proud Ava barely recognized him anymore. The father who once carried her on his shoulders at the county fair was gone, replaced by a man who cared more about applause than his own child. Ava took a step back, then another, until she bumped into someone behind her. A hand gently steadied her. "Ava," a familiar voice said. Ava turned. Her mom's co-worker, Miss Rivera, someone who had always been kind to her. The woman instantly noticed the fear in Ava's eyes. "Sweetie, what's wrong?" Ava's voice trembled, but she forced herself to speak. "They're lying. They stole my mom's work. They deleted her recordings. They want to make her look bad." Miss Rivera's expression shifted from confusion to shock to fierce concern. "Are you sure?" Ava nodded quickly. "I heard them." Miss Rivera didn't hesitate. She grabbed her phone. "Emma needs to know right now." But before she could call, the overhead lights dimmed slightly, an announcement that the ceremony was about to begin. A voice over the speakers said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We will now recognize the team behind this year's most innovative project." Ava's heart stopped. Jason and Brianna were being ushered toward the stage. It was happening. Right now, right in front of her. Ava's pulse pounded in her ears. If her mother didn't arrive within minutes, it would be too late. Emma arrived at the gala much later than planned. Her doctor's appointment had run long, and walking through the hotel lobby with her swollen belly made every step feel heavier than the last. She had tried to convince herself she was only attending to show support and nothing more. But deep down, something had been troubling her all week, a quiet dread she couldn't explain. As she entered the ballroom, she adjusted the soft cream shawl around her shoulders and inhaled sharply. The lights were dimming, people were taking their seats, and up on stage, standing proudly beneath the giant screen displaying her project template, were Jason and Brianna. A cold wave washed over her. She scanned the room for Ava, heart thudding. She expected to see her daughter sitting next to Jason or maybe at the end of a table, but Ava was nowhere in sight. A burst of protective fear shot through Emma's chest. "Where is my baby?" Then, "Mom!" Emma turned in time to see Ava running toward her. The moment Ava collided into her arms, Emma crouched down carefully despite her belly. She held Ava's shoulders, brushing back the little curls stuck to her forehead. "Ava, honey, what's wrong? Why are you shaking?" Ava's voice came out in broken breaths. "Mom, they took your project. They're going to show it and say it's theirs. They deleted your recordings. They planned everything." Emma's eyes widened. "Sweetheart, slow down. Tell me again." Ava grabbed her mother's hands tighter. "Mom, you have to stop them. Right now, before everyone believes them." Emma's pulse roared in her ears. She looked over Ava's shoulder at the stage. Brianna was adjusting the microphone. Jason was smiling confidently. The room was seconds away from celebrating them. And suddenly, the weeks made sense. The unexplained file changes, missing drafts, the condescending email Brianna sent by mistake, the tension in board meetings. Emma stood up, steadier than she had felt in months. A voice echoed through the ballroom. "Please welcome Jason Miller and Brianna Clark." The applause began. Emma took Ava's hand. No more running, no more silence. Tonight she would protect her daughter and her name. Emma didn't remember deciding to move. Her legs just carried her forward, guided by instinct more powerful than fear. One hand rested on her belly, the other holding tightly to Ava, who walked beside her with wide, determined eyes. They cut through the rows of seated guests as the applause faded, and Jason stepped toward the microphone. "Thank you all for being here," Jason began, smiling with practiced confidence. "This year's success—" He froze mid-sentence, because Emma was stepping onto the lower stairs of the stage. A ripple of whispers moved through the ballroom. Cameras lifted, heads turned. Emma felt her heart pounding hard, but Ava squeezed her hand, grounding her. Jason's expression shifted from confusion to panic. Brianna's smile cracked instantly. "Emma?" Jason forced a laugh. You're early." "I'm right on time," Emma said, her voice calm but unwavering. Ava stepped forward just ahead of her mother and looked straight at the audience. Her voice trembled but carried farther than anyone expected. "They're lying," she said softly. "This project is my mom's. I heard them talking. They deleted her recordings and said no one would believe her." A hush fell so deep the air felt heavy. Brianna's voice pitched up, brittle. "Ava, sweetheart, you must be confused." "No," Ava said louder, braver. "I'm not." Emma reached into her bag and pulled out a USB drive. Before my account was tampered with, she continued, I backed up everything. Every draft, every recorded session, every time-stamped file, and your system keeps internal logs. She handed the USB to the event technician nearby. He plugged it into the main computer. The giant screen flickered. Then, Emma's voice filled the room. A brainstorming recording, clear, organized, dated, undeniable. The gasps spread like a wave. Jason went pale. Brianna visibly panicked. Emma kept her chin high. Your system will confirm the deletions were done from Jason's employee login. Jason stuttered. Emma, listen, this isn't... But Emma didn't let him finish. Ava deserved honesty. I deserved honesty. And this company deserved the truth. Silence. Then someone in the audience began to clap. Slow, firm, definitive. A second person joined. Then a third. Until the entire ballroom erupted. And for the first time in months, Emma finally breathed. The applause didn't die down quickly. It grew, wave after wave, rolling across the ballroom as people stood, some slowly, some instantly, as if the truth itself had pulled them to their feet. Emma felt the vibration of it in her chest, but what steadied her most was the tiny hand clutching hers. Ava. Her daughter, the one voice no one expected, had changed everything. But the moment of triumph was short-lived. The head of the company's compliance team, a sharp-eyed woman named Miss Aldridge, stepped toward the stage with a small tablet in her hand. She had already opened the internal records. Jason Miller, she said clearly, her voice slicing through the noise, we need to speak with you immediately. The room quieted again. Jason tried to keep his composure. This must be a misunderstanding. Emma is emotional. She's pregnant. She's confused. It was the wrong thing to say. Emma didn't flinch, but the crowd did. A low murmur of disapproval rippled through the guests. People who had watched her single-handedly keep departments afloat during difficult months. People who respected her far more than Jason realized. Miss Aldridge held up her tablet. The system logs show that 2 user accounts accessed Emma's files without authorization. Jason, yours is one of them. And Brianna, yours is the other. Brianna blanched. That's impossible. Someone must have hacked it. No, Miss Aldridge said flatly. Both logins came from your assigned devices. Ava stepped closer to her mother, her voice small but firm. I heard them. They planned it. Cameras from local press began to turn toward the stage, sensing a story unraveling in real time. A few board members were already whispering to one another, clearly disturbed. Jason ran a hand through his hair, his confidence peeling away. Emma, please, don't do this here. Let's talk privately. Emma's reply was steady. You made it public the moment you stole from me. The ballroom erupted with another wave of gasps. And then, something unexpected happened. Brianna took a step backward, distancing herself from Jason. I didn't force him, she blurted. He told me to delete the recordings. He said no one would believe a pregnant woman anyway. The whole room froze. Jason's face drained of color. And for the first time, Ava saw fear, not anger, flicker in her father's eyes. The ballroom felt colder all of a sudden, as if the chandeliers themselves had gone still. Every eye locked on Jason. Once the rising star of the company, now a man cornered by his own choices. But what shook him wasn't Miss Aldridge, or the board, or even the exposed digital logs. It was Ava, his daughter, standing beside Emma, chin lifted, watching him with a mixture of hurt and disbelief so deep it stripped him of every excuse he wanted to give. Dad, Ava whispered, her voice trembling but clear in the silence. Why did you do that to Mom? Jason opened his mouth, but the words tangled. He glanced at the audience, at Brianna, at the flashing cameras, anywhere except the child asking him the one question he feared most. He tried to reach for her. Sweetheart, I didn't mean to... Ava stepped back, instinctively moving closer to Emma. You lied, she said, tears brimming but voice steady. And you let her, she glanced briefly at Brianna, be mean to me when you weren't looking. A murmur spread across the room. Brianna stiffened. Ava, that's not... But Ava shook her head. You told me not to talk about Mom. You said I was annoying. You threw away my bunny. Emma's breath caught. She'd wondered for months why Ava had stopped sleeping with the stuffed rabbit she'd loved since preschool. Jason swallowed hard, guilt flickering across his face. For the first time, he saw what he had ignored. The fear in Ava's eyes every time she left Emma's house, her shrinking posture, the way she stopped asking questions around him. He looked at Brianna, then at the room, then at his daughter, his world, the child he had promised to protect. "I didn't know," Jason said weakly. Ava's chin wobbled. "You didn't want to know." The words hit him harder than any accusation an adult could have made. Miss Aldridge stepped forward. "Jason Miller, due to breaches of ethics and data misconduct, you are hereby suspended pending investigation." A sharp gasp rolled through the crowd. Jason closed his eyes. But when he opened them, it wasn't the company or the consequences he feared most. It was the realization that he had lost something far more precious than any job, Ava's trust. For a long, fragile moment, the ballroom stayed completely silent. Every guest, every executive, every camera locked on the small girl who had just broken open an adult world built on lies. Ava stood close to her mother, fingers gripping Emma's dress, but her chin stayed lifted. She wasn't hiding anymore. Emma rested a gentle hand on Ava's shoulder, grounding her. "You're safe," she whispered softly. Across the stage, Brianna's composure finally cracked. Her eyes darted from Jason to the board members to the audience, searching for someone, anyone, to take her side. "It wasn't supposed to go like this," she muttered under her breath. Emma heard it. A few people near the front heard it too. Miss Aldridge, still holding the company tablet, addressed the room. "We have enough preliminary evidence to proceed with a full internal review. This includes unauthorized access, deletion of proprietary files, and misrepresentation of work." A board member leaned into his microphone. "Miss Collins," he nodded at Emma, "your backup files, timestamps, and recordings will be reviewed immediately. If confirmed, you will be recognized as the sole creator of the project." Emma inhaled shakily. Not for the credit, not for revenge, but because she knew Ava needed to see that the truth mattered. Jason rubbed a hand over his face. "Emma, I made mistakes, but you can't do this in front of everyone." Emma answered softly but firmly. "Jason, you did this in front of everyone the moment you took something that wasn't yours, and you let Ava suffer in silence." A visible shudder went through him. Ava stepped forward, her voice small yet brave. "Dad, Mom's not the one who should be embarrassed. You are." Another wave of stunned murmurs swept the ballroom. Then security approached the stage, not aggressively but formally. One officer spoke clearly. "Mr. Miller, you're requested to step outside for questioning regarding the internal investigation." Jason looked around helplessly, but no one came to his defense. Not the executives, not his colleagues, not even Brianna, who now stood several feet away, distancing herself. He had built his future on lies, and it had collapsed in minutes. Emma wrapped her arm around Ava, pulling her close. Tonight, the truth didn't just come out. It won. As Jason was escorted toward the side exit for questioning, the weight in the ballroom seemed to lift. Just slightly, just enough for people to breathe again. Conversations murmured through the room, guests still processing what they'd witnessed. But at the center of the stage stood the two people who mattered most, Emma and Ava, holding onto each other as if the world had finally stopped spinning long enough for them to stand still. Emma knelt carefully, one hand bracing her belly, the other reaching to brush a tear from Ava's cheek. "Sweetheart, you were so brave." Ava sniffled but didn't look away. I didn't want them to hurt you anymore." Emma pulled her into a hug, not too tight, mindful of her pregnancy, but full of warmth and gratitude. "You protected me more than you know." Nearby, Brianna took a shaky step forward. Her voice cracked. "Emma, I didn't mean for Ava to get involved. I never wanted—" Miss Aldridge cut her off sharply. "Miss Clark, you will have a separate interview. Please remain available." Brianna's face fell. Her confidence, once so polished, had evaporated entirely. She backed away, blending into the shadows at the far end of the room, suddenly invisible in a place she once tried so hard to dominate. A soft voice interrupted the tension. "Emma?" It was Mr. Donnelly, the vice president of the company, a man known for being fair but strict. He stepped forward, straightening his suit as he addressed her. "I reviewed some of the files personally over the last few months," he admitted. "I suspected inconsistencies but didn't have proof." His gaze softened. "What you did tonight, what your daughter did, took courage. Emma swallowed hard. I didn't plan to do it this way. I know, Donnelly said gently, but sometimes the truth forces its way into the room. He then turned to Ava, lowering himself to her eye level. Young lady, you reminded all of us of something important tonight, that integrity isn't just a word, it's a choice. Ava shifted shyly, leaning into her mother. I just wanted my mom to be treated right. Donnelly nodded solemnly, and because of you, she will be. Behind them, technicians began removing the presentation that had been meant to celebrate Jason and Brianna. In its place flashed a simple message. Review pending, original creator under verification. A new silence settled over the ballroom. But this time it didn't feel heavy. It felt like justice beginning. For the first time all evening, Ava felt the air loosen around her. Like the ballroom itself had stopped being so big, so loud, so overwhelming. People weren't just staring at her now. They were listening. Grown adults in tailored suits and sparkling dresses were giving their full attention to an 8-year-old girl who had spent months feeling invisible. Emma guided Ava toward a small seating area just off stage, easing herself into a chair while still keeping her daughter close. Are you okay, sweetheart? She asked softly. Ava nodded, though her hands still trembled. Mom, do you think I messed everything up? No, Emma said immediately, brushing a curl from Ava's forehead. You fixed what the adults were too scared to fix. Before Ava could respond, a cluster of employees approached. People Emma had worked with for years but rarely socialized with. They wore expressions of genuine regret. Emma, one woman said, her voice gentle, we're sorry. We should have spoken up sooner. We saw changes in the files. We just didn't want to assume. Another added, if we'd known about Ava, about what was happening at home, we would have stepped in. Emma shook her head. None of this is your fault. We all get scared sometimes. Ava looked down at her shoes. She understood fear better than most grown-ups. Right then, the event moderator, a calm, composed man who had watched the entire scene unfold, stepped onto the stage with a microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, after the disruption earlier, we will be taking a brief recess to allow the compliance team to continue their work. He paused, glancing toward Emma and Ava with a soft smile. But before we break, I think we all witnessed something important tonight. He gestured toward Ava. A few people clapped instinctively, then a few more, until applause filled the ballroom again, gentler this time, warmer, not for drama or spectacle, but for courage. Ava blushed, hiding her face in Emma's arm. Emma kissed the top of her head. See, they're proud of you. A server approached them quietly, offering Ava a small glass of apple juice. For the bravest person in the room, he said kindly. Ava accepted it with both hands, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. Safe, seen, believed. And maybe, just maybe, this was only the beginning of everything about to change. As the recess began and the ballroom buzzed with whispered conversations, Brianna stood frozen near a decorative column, her back straight, her face pale, her perfectly styled hair suddenly feeling like armor that no longer protected her. She watched as employees approached Emma and Ava with sympathy and respect. No one approached her. No one even made eye contact. For someone who thrived on attention, the silence around Brianna felt like ice closing in. She saw Emma seated with Ava, the little girl sipping her apple juice, leaning into her mother like a flower finally finding sunlight after too long in the shade. The sight made something twist inside Brianna. Jealousy, anger, fear. Even she didn't know. But it wasn't regret. Not yet. Not until Miss Aldridge approached her. Miss Clark, the compliance officer said calmly, I need a few minutes of your time. Brianna lifted her chin. Is this really necessary? I didn't do anything criminal. That's for us to determine, Aldridge replied. Brianna's composure faltered. Look, Jason handled the files. I only followed what he instructed. If anyone should be questioned, it's... You both will be questioned. The firmness in Aldridge's voice left no room for evasion. A few guests paused nearby, watching. Not with cruelty, but with curiosity and disappointment. Brianna felt exposed, judged, vulnerable in ways she didn't know how to fight. Her eyes flicked back to the stage, where Emma's recovered files still displayed on the screen. Her name, her timestamps, her voice in the recordings. Evidence Brianna never thought would see daylight again. How did she keep those backups? The question gnawed at Brianna's nerves. But then her gaze fell on Ava, the quiet little girl she had underestimated. Ava sat close to her mother, not scared anymore, not small, not silent. And suddenly, Brianna understood. Ava had been the turning point, a child, the one person Brianna never considered a threat. Ava felt the stare. She looked up. Their eyes met, not with hate, not with fear, but with something Brianna couldn't escape. Truth, simple, unshakable truth. And for the first time, guilt, not fear, tightened in her chest, because everything was collapsing, and it started with the child she tried to silence. While Brianna was being escorted to a side conference room for questioning, Emma and Ava were invited to sit with several board members at a private table near the front. It wasn't a place Emma ever expected to be. Not as a mid-level manager, not as a pregnant woman trying to stay afloat through a messy divorce, and definitely not as someone who had just exposed a major ethics breach in front of an entire company. But tonight wasn't normal. Tonight, the truth had elbowed its way into the light. Ava sat close to her mother, her little legs swinging nervously beneath the chair. She looked around at the adults in suits, worried she might be in trouble for speaking out, but every expression directed toward her carried respect. Not annoyance, not doubt, not disbelief. Respect. One board member, a woman named Dr. Harris, leaned in with a soft smile. "Ava, what you did tonight took extraordinary bravery." Ava pressed her lips together. "I just didn't want them to hurt my mom." Emma squeezed her daughter's hand, her heart tightening. Another executive, Mr. Donnelly, cleared his throat. "Emma, we've been reviewing the first batch of restored files." He held up a folder. "Your work is unmistakably the foundation of the project." Emma exhaled shakily. She had believed it deep down, but hearing it said aloud felt like the ground returning under her feet. "But there's more," Donnelly continued. "The deleted audio logs were recoverable. Your ideas, your testing sessions, your timeline, everything matches your project notes." A murmur of validation rippled around the table. Ava lifted her head. "So people will believe my mom now?" Dr. Harris smiled warmly. "They already do." Tears welled in Emma's eyes, not from sadness or fear this time, but relief. Months of being dismissed, overlooked, and quietly undermined suddenly felt distant, like a storm finally drifting away. Before she could speak, the ballroom doors opened. A staff member approached the board, whispering something urgent. Donnelly nodded slowly, then turned to Emma. "The compliance team has finished their initial questioning," he said, "and based on what they found—" He paused, gathering the room's attention. "Jason and Brianna's stories don't match, not even close." Ava's eyes widened. "What does that mean?" Donnelly looked at her gently. "It means the truth is winning, Ava, faster than any of us expected." A hush settled over the board table as Donnelly placed a second folder down, this one thicker, heavier, filled with printed statements and timestamps. Emma could feel Ava tighten her grip, small fingers curling around her hand like she was bracing for something big. "What did they say?" Emma asked, keeping her voice steady. Donnelly exhaled. "They tried to blame each other, completely." Ava blinked. Like when kids get caught doing something bad at school?" A few board members couldn't help smiling at her innocence. Donnelly nodded. "Exactly like that. Only here the consequences are much bigger." He opened the folder. "Jason claims he only reviewed the files. He says Brianna insisted on deleting your recorded sessions and presenting the project as theirs." Emma's jaw tightened, but she waited. "Brianna, on the other hand," Donnelly continued, "says she simply followed Jason's instructions and never even touched your laptop. She claims she didn't know the work belonged to you." Ava frowned deeply. "But that's not true. I heard her. She said she knew." "She did," Donnelly confirmed gently. "And thanks to what you shared, Ava, the compliance team pressed further. When they compared the digital logs with the stories Jason and Brianna told." He tapped the folder lightly. The lies fell apart. Emma's breath hitched. "So what happens now?" Before Donnelly could answer, Dr. Harris spoke up. "The board has authority to suspend them both while the full investigation continues. But after tonight, after everything we've uncovered, it's clear neither should be anywhere near leadership roles." A murmur of agreement circled the group. Ava leaned against her mother, her voice quiet but firm. "They hurt Mom's work, and they made me feel scared. That should matter too." Every executive at the table nodded. "It does," Dr. Harris said softly. "It matters more than you know." Just then, a staff member arrived again, breathless. "The compliance team has one more update," he said. "It concerns Ava." Emma's heart dropped. "Ava? What about her?" The staff member swallowed. "They interviewed her, as you approved, and her testimony revealed a pattern of emotional mistreatment by Brianna while under Jason's care." The table fell silent. Ava looked up, uncertain. Emma reached for her daughter, holding her closer than ever. And in that moment, the board realized this wasn't just a work scandal. This was a family finally being heard. The words emotional mistreatment hung in the air like a crack of thunder, quiet, controlled, but powerful enough to change the entire atmosphere of the room. Emma instinctively wrapped her arm around Ava, who leaned into her mother's side, uncertain but trusting. The board members exchanged troubled glances. This was no longer simply a professional matter. It was a human one. Dr. Harris placed her hands gently on the table. "We asked a child specialist to sit in during Ava's interview," she explained. "They observed her reactions, her hesitations, and her descriptions of Brianna's behavior." Ava shifted uneasily, her voice a whisper. "Did I say something wrong?" "No, sweetheart," Emma murmured, smoothing her hair. "You told the truth. That's never wrong." The staff member continued carefully, mindful of Ava's age. Ava shared things that indicate she felt unsafe and unwelcome in her father's home. Not physical harm, nothing graphic, but enough emotional pressure to cause fear and distress. A soft gasp passed through the group. Ava looked down at her hands. "She made me feel like I was the problem." Emma's heart clenched. "You were never the problem, baby." Donnelly cleared his throat, voice thick with concern. "We alerted family services, not to punish, but to ensure Ava's well-being. When a child expresses fear, we listen." Ava's eyes flicked up. "Does that mean I don't have to live there anymore?" Emma squeezed her gently. "It means people are going to make sure you're safe first. That's all that matters." The room fell into a thoughtful silence. One board member, usually quiet, finally spoke. "This child showed more integrity tonight than 2 adults in management. We owe her protection and her mother justice." Miss Aldridge re-entered the room holding a tablet. "Preliminary recommendation is for temporary protective custody under the mother until a formal hearing." Emma's breath caught. "Temporary custody?" Ava sat up straighter. Hope lit her eyes, small, trembling, but real. "Does that mean I can stay with my mom?" she asked, barely breathing. Aldridge nodded gently. "Yes, Ava, you'll stay with your mother for now." Ava threw her arms around Emma in a burst of relief, and in that moment, everyone around them understood. The truth hadn't just exposed lies. It had finally brought a child home. The ballroom felt different now, lighter, warmer, almost protective. It was as if the entire room had shifted itself around Ava, forming a shield she had never known before. Emma held her daughter close, her hand resting gently on Ava's back, afraid to let go even for a second. After months of quiet fear, tonight felt like a door finally opening. Miss Aldridge stepped closer, lowering her voice so Ava wouldn't feel overwhelmed. "We've notified the appropriate child services team. Given the evidence and Ava's statements, the recommendation is clear. She should remain with you, Emma, at least while a full review is conducted." Emma's breath shook. "Thank you. Thank you for taking her seriously." Ava peeked up. "So, I'm really going home with Mom?" "You are," Aldridge affirmed kindly. "Tonight and moving forward until everything is settled." For a moment, Ava simply blinked, like she needed time for the words to sink in. Then her face crumpled, not with fear this time, but with overwhelming relief. She buried her face in Emma's shoulder, her small arms wrapping around her mom's neck like she never wanted to let go. Across the room, several employees watched quietly. Some wiped tears. Others nodded as if justice had finally clicked into place. Emma stroked Ava's back. "You're safe now," she whispered. "No more pretending. No more being afraid." Ava lifted her head. "Mom, will Dad be mad?" Emma hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Your dad will have to answer for the choices he made, but none of this is your fault. You did the right thing." A tiny nod. Ava believed her. Just then, a gentle knock echoed from behind them. A child services representative had arrived, a calm woman with a soft expression. "I'm here to make sure Ava's transition home is smooth and secure," she said. Ava tightened her grip on Emma's hand, but didn't hide. "I want to go home with my mom." The woman smiled warmly. "Then that's exactly what we'll do." Emma kissed the top of Ava's head, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. Not from pain this time, but from a rising sense of hope. For the first time in a long time, Ava wasn't being taken somewhere. She was being brought back. Emma followed the child services representative toward a quieter lounge area off the ballroom, one hand holding Ava's tightly, the other bracing her lower back as the weight of her pregnancy reminded her she had to stay calm for both of her children. The murmurs of the gala faded behind them, replaced by the low hum of distant music and soft lighting that made the room feel safer, gentler. Ava stayed close, her steps small but steady. She no longer looked like the frightened child who had tiptoed around Brianna's rules. Tonight, she held herself differently, with a courage earned the hard way. The representative, Miss Wilkins, sat down across from them, a folder resting on her lap. Her voice remained gentle as she spoke. "Ava, I need to ask just a few more questions about how you felt living in your father's home. Not about anything scary, just your feelings, okay?" Ava nodded, leaning into Emma's side. "I didn't feel welcome," she said quietly. "I felt like I was in the way." Emma's throat tightened. Miss Wilkins wrote something down. "And when you were with your mom, how did you feel then?" Ava didn't hesitate. "Safe, happy, like she saw me." Emma placed a hand over her daughter's, tears gathering but not falling. A soft knock interrupted the moment. Mr. Donnelly stepped into the lounge. "Emma," he said with an apologetic smile, "I wanted you to hear this from us directly. The board has reviewed enough evidence to clear your name. You will be fully credited as the creator of the project. We're preparing an official statement." Emma exhaled, relief washing through her. "Thank you. But that's not all," he added. "We're offering you a temporary leadership role during the investigation. You've earned it." Ava's eyes widened. "Mom, you're the boss." Emma laughed softly, cupping Ava's cheek. "For a little while, maybe." Miss Wilkins closed her folder gently. "Given everything Ava has shared," she said, "and the clear emotional safety she has with you, Emma, she'll remain in your care during the full review." Ava beamed, pure light returning to her face. Emma wrapped an arm around her, whispering, "This is our fresh start." And for the first time in months, Emma felt something she thought she'd lost. Control, hope, a future she could build again. While Emma and Ava remained in the quiet lounge, the ballroom outside buzzed with a very different kind of energy. Shock, whispers, and a growing understanding of just how deeply Jason and Brianna's betrayal had gone. Word traveled fast. Executives murmured with disbelief. Employees who once admired Jason now shook their heads, realizing the truth had been hidden in plain sight. And now consequences were arriving. Security escorted Jason back into the lounge area, but not to confront Emma. He was accompanied by 2 company officials and looked nothing like the confident man who had walked onto the stage earlier. His shoulders sagged, his tie loosened, and his expression carried a mix of fear, guilt, and something Ava had never seen in him before. Shame. "Emma," he said quietly, stopping several feet away, I didn't expect all of this." Ava instinctively moved closer to her mother. Emma rested a calming hand on her daughter's back. Miss Wilkins, the child services representative, stepped forward. "Mr. Miller, I understand this is overwhelming, but Ava will remain with her mother until a full custody review is complete." Jason's face tightened. "I didn't hurt her." "No," Miss Wilkins said gently, "but you failed to protect her. That matters too." Jason's eyes flicked to Ava. She didn't glare or hide. She simply watched him with a sadness too deep for an 8-year-old. "Dad," she whispered, "I just wanted you to listen." His breath faltered. "I should have." Brianna appeared next, escorted by 2 compliance staff. Her makeup was smudged, her confidence gone. "Emma," she said, voice breaking, "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to get this bad. I thought Jason was telling the truth. I thought—" Emma held up a hand. "This isn't about apologizing in front of an audience. It's about understanding why you hurt a child who never did anything to you." Brianna's gaze dropped to the floor. Mr. Donnelly stepped in with a formal tone. "Jason Miller and Brianna Clark, you are both terminated, effective immediately. Pending further legal review, security will collect your badges and escort you out." Silence followed. heavy, final. Ava watched her father swallow hard, eyes glistening. "I'm sorry, Ava," he whispered. Ava didn't respond. She simply held Emma's hand tighter. Tonight she didn't owe him forgiveness. Tonight belonged to the truth. And the truth had finally won. The hotel lights had dimmed, staff were clearing tables, and the last guests were drifting out into the cool night air. But inside the quiet lounge, Emma and Ava remained seated together, hands intertwined, hearts finally steady. The chaos of the night had settled into something gentler, something warm. For the first time in a long time, they weren't bracing for what might happen next. They were simply safe. Miss Wilkins closed her notes and offered Emma a reassuring nod. "Ava will go home with you tonight. A full review will follow, but based on everything we've seen, this arrangement is best." Emma exhaled, a tremble of relief spilling from her lips. "Thank you." Ava leaned her head on Emma's shoulder. "Mom, can we go home now? To our home?" Emma kissed her forehead. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going home." As they stood, Mr. Donnelly re-entered, holding a slim company envelope. "Emma," he said, "I wanted to give you this before you left." He handed it to her. "It's an official letter naming you project lead, and a temporary promotion that could become permanent once you're ready after maternity leave." Emma blinked in disbelief. I don't even know what to say." "Say you'll accept it," Donnelly replied gently. "You earned this, long before tonight." Ava's eyes sparkled. "Mom's the boss now." Emma laughed softly. "Maybe just a little bit." As they walked toward the hotel exit, the night breeze brushed against them. The city lights shimmered, reflected in the glass doors like a promise of something new. Emma tightened her arm around Ava. "You were my hero tonight," she whispered. Ava shook her head shyly. "I just told the truth." "And that," Emma said, voice warm and sure, "is the bravest thing anyone can do." A car pulled up, the one Emma had driven earlier. Miss Wilkins watched them with a satisfied smile. "Take care of yourselves. I'll check in tomorrow." Emma buckled Ava into the back seat, her movements gentle, full of a love she no longer had to hide or ration. She slid into the driver's seat and looked at her daughter through the mirror. "Ready to go home?" Ava nodded, cheeks soft with the glow of safety restored. "Ready." Emma started the engine, and together, mother and daughter, they drove into a future finally free of fear, finally their own. So that's how the story closes, my wonderful friends. And if you're still here with me right now, it probably means something, and Ava and Emma's journey touched your heart in a real way. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength, or someone you once protected, or a moment where you had to stand up even though you were scared. At its core, this story isn't just drama. It's a reminder that truth matters, courage matters, and kindness matters most when the world feels loud and unfair. Ava showed us that even a quiet voice can change everything, and Emma showed us that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means rising again. You know, the Stoics often said that the world outside isn't what defines us. It's how we respond to it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. Every obstacle becomes a doorway." Emma walked through hers. Ava stepped through hers. And maybe you're stepping through yours too. If this story moved you even just a little, I hope you carry its message into your own life. Speak honestly, protect gently, and trust that healing is possible. And hey, if you felt something tonight, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We're building a community where stories help us breathe a little easier together.